Hi there, welcome to Great with Copper. Today I'm going to show you how to make this Wirework focal necklace. To make this, the materials you need are 1mm diameter copper wire, 0.4mm diameter copper wire, a chain and clasp, and a flat or puffy round bead around about 10mm in diameter. This is a small lilac druzy quartz that I've got here. And the tools you need are your flat nose pliers, wire cutters, round nose pliers, nylon jaw pliers might be useful, and liver of sulphur to patina it at the end. Now I've cut 3 pieces of the 1mm diameter wire. 2 pieces need to be 20 to 25 centimetres long, and 1 piece slightly longer at 25 to 30 centimetres long. I've gone for the upper end of the limit here just to give me options when I come to embellish at the end. And to start the piece you just need the 2 shorter frame wires. And I'm going to take a piece of the 0.4mm wire that's 2.5 metres long. It seems really long and you can use shorter lengths and add in as necessary. But I am starting from the centre of that wire so it isn't quite so difficult to handle. So I'm going to take one of my frame wires and place the centre of the weaving wire on the centre of the frame wire and wrap that a few times to anchor it. I'm then going to take the second frame wire, position that on the top of the first and wrap both wires twice. I then want to wrap that original bottom wire 5 times. And that's going to be the wrap that I'm using for this part of the piece. 5 single wraps, 2 double wraps, and then 5 single wraps, 2 double wraps. And once you've got it started one side, you can turn the piece around and do the same weave on the other side. And you just want to weave enough to get you halfway around the side of the bead. Once you've got the weave underway, you can curve it around the bead and just check where those weaving wires are, whether they're in line with the holes. And just put a few extra wraps on if necessary. I then want to take the weaving wires through the bead from either side so that the wires cross in the middle of the bead. You then need to pull those wires tight and carefully manoeuvre the bead into position. You can use your flat nose pliers to help pull those weaving wires if necessary. And once the bead fits tight to the frame, you can then continue with the weave as before on both sides. Weave enough to enclose the bead and then turn those weaving wires so you can see both of them from the front of the piece. And then cross those frame wires over at the bottom of the bead. Now where they cross, I'm just going to swap over the 2 weaving wires. This will fix the frame into position on the bead. I'm then going to continue the weave on both sides for another centimetre or so at the bottom of the bead. So we're now ready to add in that 3rd frame wire. And the first thing I want to do is create a shallow angle in the middle of that wire. This will create a slight point at the bottom. You could leave it just rounded if you wanted to, or make it a bit more pronounced. For shallow angles like this, I find it's easier to make the angle a little bit sharper than you want and then shallow it back off again. And once I'm happy with that angle, I'm going to place the wire on the outside of the existing 2. It doesn't matter if that angle is exactly in the centre at the moment because you can adjust it later. Now I've finished the previous weaving with one of the double wraps and the weaving wire coming up between the two original wires. So I'm now going to take that weaving wire over the top two wires twice. I'll then bring it between the top two wires and over the bottom two wires once. I then want to wrap that bottom wire 5 times. I'm then going to go back up to wrap the bottom two wires once, the top two wires twice, the bottom two wires once, and then 5 wraps on the bottom wire again. And that's the weave that we're going to use for the rest of the frame. Now I want to introduce a twist on the side of this frame. The issue with this is that I want the weaving to look the same, and if you check on the back you'll see that the weaving looks different on the back to the front. So all I'm going to do, where I expect the twist to be starting, is turn the piece over and then continue the weave so I can see that it's looking right on what is currently the back of the piece. You might find as you weave that the 3 frame wires aren't sitting flat next to each other, but all you need to do is clamp them with your nylon jaw pliers or flat nose pliers and they'll settle into a flat position. I'm now ready to introduce the twist, so I'm just going to use my flat nose pliers to hold those wires in position and then gently twist them round with my hand. You can then continue the twist by hand, and it's worth also for this piece bending the frame into the eventual teardrop shape at this point. Now it's worth taking your time getting the shaping right, but once you get to the point where the frame is crossing at the top, I'm going to swap those weaving wires over again. And this will lock the two sides of the frame together in position. I'm then going to continue the weave for about another 3 sets. Now I don't want the ends of the frame wires all finishing in the same place. So once I'm happy that I've woven enough of the 3 wire weave, I'm just going to switch and I'm going to go back to the weave on the 2 wires. So I'll weave 5 wraps on 1 wire, 2 wraps on 2 wires, and then 5 wraps on 1 wire. And that completes the weaving. Now to embellish, I'm going to start by cutting the top wires a little way away from the wraps. And then turning the ends in a couple of small loops. I then want to bend these over a little bit further, and I can come back and adjust those later. Now I'm going to use the bottom wires to thread back through the piece, so I'll just bend them up and out of the way for now. And then I want to cut the middle wires and make another couple of loops. And these will be the loops that attach to the chain. Now for the final 2 wires, they're curving over the top of the piece, so I'm going to continue that curve, take them down the back of the piece and then through the centre. and I'm going to shape both wires alternately to help keep it symmetrical. And then I want to curve the wire around the frame towards the back so it's locked onto the frame. And it's really worth taking your time at this point to make sure both sides look even. And then I really just want to finish these wires off and make sure they don't move or catch. So I'm just going to trim the wires, create a small loop, and then tuck it into the space between the stone and the outer frame. And that's my focal piece made and ready for the liver of sulphur. So I've patinaed the piece with the liver of sulphur and cleaned off the high spots to show the texture. Now all that's left to do is add the chain. So I'm just going to open up those loops and add on my necklace chain. Then I can close those loops and the necklace is complete. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If so, please press the like button below. Don't forget you can subscribe to my channel and head over to my website for more hints, tips and projects. See you next time.